President Larry Goldman about the association.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Steve and Stevie, for setting this up. I'm just going to make a few quick comments before we get into the panel, and then Jeff Greenberg is going to be joining us probably around 12:15 for his perspective, his legal perspective on the industry in Kansas and some of the pitfalls we need to be aware of. Something I want to mention to all the members is that, it's really important, even if we don't have face-to-face meetings, that we keep our membership up. The legislative challenges are still out there, and actually it's this year, I'd say there's probably more. The industry is even more dynamic operationally, which we'll get into in a little bit, and transaction-wise, just with the changes in financing. Fortunately, we're in an industry where it's mostly good news, relative to everything else that's going on out there. But you really want to have all the tools you can, because things seem to be changing. Things are more dynamic more than ever. But as it stands now, our meeting, our annual meeting, will continue, is scheduled for November 18th in Wichita, Kansas at Crestview. That's usually our biggest and best meeting, frankly, every year. It very possibly will get canceled. Pretty much all the states and the national meetings have been canceled already. But we'll just see. November's a few months off, so we don't need to make that decision. But, in the meantime, I like the format of having, periodic, maybe every month or two, having an hour-and-a-half meeting. And we're very interested, the board is very interested in the feedback from the members on if this is the best time to have a meeting, the best length of meeting, the best format. So please give us your feedback on the format and also the topics. If you're more interested in the operations, the legal side, financing, valuation, we're going to try to we'll tackle a little bit of everything today. But please post your questions and give us your feedback on the format. But with that, I'm going to introduce Steve Lucas from the Storage Group. Will tell us a little about his company, and he has set up basically the technology of the Zoom meetings.
Great. Well, thank you, Larry and Brian, for reaching out, and we're more than happy to assist with the Zoom technology. We've been doing, we've been helping some of the state associations do some of this this tech stuff over the last few months, and it's kind of intriguing, and it's a different way of life, but I think it's something that we're going to be kind of stuck with for a while. So I'm the CEO of the Storage Group. Again, my name is Steve Lucas. We are a website design company as well as an internet marketing company. We're a Google partner, and we also have an online move-in tool called Click and Store. Click and Store, we developed that and launched it in 2010, and the online transactional numbers this year over last year alone are 300% and above. I mean, it's just incredible how the digital side of this industry has really exploded. Even folks that thought that they'd never go to online rentals have been pretty much pushed in the direction to do that. So if any of you need any assistance with any of that type of stuff, reach out to us. I can tell you from all the experiences we've had with the other associations and some of these virtual seminars we've been on, the legal side is absolutely dynamic. And what Larry said earlier about making sure to continue your membership, I can't tell you how important that's going to be over the next year. The legal realm is changing dynamically because of online transactions, because of that no contact environment that we're in. Liability issues from contracting COVID are starting to become part of the business world. So there's a lot to be aware of, and especially in this day and age, I can't tell you how important. I'm an entrepreneur of 40 years. I've been in business, all types of businesses. And the legal realm is something you can never forget about. They'll sneak up on you, and you'll have to change whether you want to or not. So hats off to everybody. I thank you for allowing me the few minutes. And again, continue support of your local group. Very, very important, as I said. So I turn it back to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. So now we'll start with our panel. Again, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You can always input a question in there. We'll look at it and we'll go ahead and ask the question near the end of the discussion. First, let's introduce our panelists. We got Larry Goldman, CCIM of Goldman Investment Advisors and Argus Self-Storage Advisors. We have Brian Bird of Landvest and Roger Strickland of Strickland Construction. Okay. You guys can unmute your screens there. Start off with the first question. These questions will be about valuation, financing, new projects, construction, operations. First, we'll start off. What have you seen, to all of you, what have you seen has been the impact of the crisis in terms of valuations in the industry?
I've seen investor demand's been stronger than ever. I haven't seen any kind of decline. One could argue maybe with lower interest rates, maybe facility values have increased. What have you observed, Rogers?
I think that's true. I think the only thing that's on the horizon that may change it is the lowering of rates that some of the bigger companies are doing, and the impact that's going to have on valuations, on income, potential income valuations. But other than that, I haven't really seen a change in cap rates, and like you, I haven't seen a change in I still get calls every day, somebody trying to buy one of my 20 facilities, and so the interest is strongly there, and the value seems to be there right now.
Have you seen many changes in expenses or expense projections moving forward?
We think accelerating labor costs will stabilize. Property taxes are probably bound to go up. It's always a concern in Kansas. That's the biggest concern. And what have you seen, Brian?
Expenses have been, actually, we're spending more money now than ever when, with many of the states being shut down, that was a great time for us to deploy some of our money for the capital items. We did a lot of seal coating and drive repairs and painting and other things like that, since we had a little bit of limited traffic to the properties. Business is really good. I think a lot of the occupancies across the country have been slightly inflated because there had been so many people not paying, and a lot of the companies had slowed down on any evictions. So we held off on seizing any units until June 1, and then we started our auction process. So we felt like we had maybe a 2.5% to 3% inflated occupancy because of that, but we're seeing it balance out now. And and we'll probably talk about it a little bit later, but there'll be a couple of different marketing pages we'll need to pay attention to for the industry during this pandemic.
So if I understand you correctly, Brian, you've seen an increase in delinquency?
Yeah,
on the
a little bit. Yeah, historically we run really low, but yeah, we've seen an increase. But what was fascinating enough about that, when we went to seize the units in June, we never make deals on partial payments or late fees, but we did through the pandemic. We felt like it was the right thing to do to pivot and be a little fluid. And what happened on June 1, when we started the lien sales process, we have actually cut less locks through the end of July than we did in 2019 or 2018 on a same site comparison. So we were pleasantly surprised with that, but we felt like we needed to be a little bit more fluid during the pandemic, but we're back to business as usual. I do think that if we're going to see some increases in delinquency, it's going to start in August and September because the additional $600 of unemployment, that's gone away. So we may start to feel a little bit of effect from that. So time will tell.
I've been
Okay.
surprised how low delinquencies have been considering the circumstances. That's just based on conversations through Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas. Very surprised. I think the REITs are seeing more delinquency and drops in rents than local ownership.
Well, one thing for sure is Kansas, we haven't seen any increases in delinquency, but in the major markets where we operate, that's where we see a little bit more of the influx. So that would be where the REITs are showing their numbers as well.
We've
guess
seen a number of new projects come up, especially in the beginning of the COVID crisis. How much longer have we seen that it takes to process loans now that compared to now versus say pre-COVID?
Not much more than before. I mean, we just, there was so much uncertainty 3 or 4 months ago. We just drew in longer due diligence periods. We'd add maybe a month, a couple extra weeks, but loans are getting processed and rates are unbelievable. I mean, we had a Argus conference call last week with a lender who was talking about a 300 basis point spread on commercial mortgage-backed securities. Not that most of the loans I'm saying are commercial mortgage-backed securities, but it's a good indicator. And he's between Wednesday and Thursday, he said he actually saw a 60-point drop. So if there was a 300-point spread over Treasuries Wednesday, it was a 240-point spread Thursday, which is the same as basically a low. What was that? About a 4% fixed for 10, 15 years. I would think underwriting is going to be a lot hairier on something like that than a bank loan, just because there's so many third parties involved. But on the bank loans, third parties, appraisers have been mobilized. They've been moving pretty quickly.
So the terms have changed,
Better rates.
but the terms
What
haven't
have you
changed.
seen, Roger?
I haven't seen any changes. I think, like you said, interest rates have actually dropped over the last 6 months. I really think if there's a slowdown, it's simply because of people who are in the business and know the business dealing with private banks like I am. There is no real change. I think maybe for brand new people to the business, then the banks are going to be quite a bit slower and more cautious. But for those of us already in the business with a track record, things move just as quickly as they ever have.
And one transaction that closed last week that the intent is to take advantage of the provision in the CARES Act as it relates to an SBA loan. And what the borrower is doing, it was an acquisition. He's doing an SBA 504 loan, and there with SBA 504 or SBA 7A, there's actually the SBA will actually pick up principal, interest, and loan costs for 6 months, which is a pretty aggressive subsidy. The challenge there is that program expires September 27th, and there is some buzz that it may get extended. I don't deal with that many SBA loans, but we're starting to see more of them. That's a bit of a bombshell.
How has the lease-up times changed to stabilize new facilities? We've talked about how delinquency has actually decreased. How has that affected lease-up times?
We've got a couple of properties in lease up now, and we've not had any issues. Without giving out specifics, we've got one in a year that got to 70%, and we've got another one in a bigger market that we're pumping 60 and 70 and pushing 80 move-ins a month. So so far so good. So I don't know if that's an anomaly with everything going on, but we haven't seen anything impacting the fill. There's a lot of competition out there, so if you've got new paint around you in some of the larger markets, it's a little different. So, but so far so good.
It may be a self-fulfilling prophecy because I have this image that boat and RV is just super hot because of the virus, but it seems like anything involving boat and RV is active, that they're leasing up. There's just more. I've seen some great lease ups on that kind of stuff recently, although they were doing well before the virus too.
So what happens to, I guess, older drive-up facilities compared to, say, these new Class A multi-story climate-controlled facilities that open up nearby? Has that changed much with this whole new environment that we're operating in?
Who wants
Well,
that?
I think you'll get 4 answers out of the 3 of us. So who wants to start? My theory is it's a different product type. I think Rogers is going to give you a different answer. I don't know. I mean, our facility is 42 years old in Kansas City, Kansas, and we're surrounded by all kinds of fancy Class A stuff. Rogers built a 5-story facility that's managed by Extra Space. I don't know. I don't think it's going to have that much impact on us. Just a theory. What have you seen, Rogers?
Well, I still think if you've got a similar unit in terms of sizes, that there's still going to be a preference for the drive up if everything else is equal. I think you have to sell the hallway unit. You have to sell the second or third floor unit a little harder than sell the benefits of it. And so I don't see any slack off in demand unless you're not taking care of your property, if it's not being presented well. I mean, that's the issue. I don't think it's, there is going to be demand for drive up from now on. And then sadly, I don't care how bad the facility is, there'll be some demand for the stuff at the bottom end, the cheaper end, based on price. So I don't really see, the multi-story is not going to replace the single-story drive-up. No, it's just an added, slightly different market, slightly different clientele, but the demand is still there for the old stuff too.
Yeah, and I agree with most of everything that Roger and Larry said. Most customers now, it starts on the internet. So on the internet, whether you have a drive up or the multi-story, if there's a way for you to cleverly differentiate, most of our product is ground level, but everything we're building now with our larger groups, they're all multi-story Class A. So how we package everything on our websites are a little bit different. So that's kind of the first step to get through. An advantage on the multi-level side, especially on the internet, your third and fourth and fifth floor rates are typically your lowest. So those are the rates that you publish, which draw people in. And any way that you can do that to serve that up for the lower rates, that's what grabs people in the door. Because once they get to the property, managers across the country are becoming much sharper with their sales skills, so they can upsell and redirect and do whatever. But you need something to hook them, to bring them in from the internet to start. But I think cleanliness is number one. You could have a multi-story that's just a dog and filthy next to a 45-year-old property that's clean, and clean sells, especially when people are storing their life. As of yesterday, this year, close to 70% of our customers are females. And so cleanliness, lighting, and all of those things are very important to the customers. So I think there's some things that you can do despite your product that will help you compete no matter what you're dealing with.
Seen more security issues in this year than you have seen it in the past, more break-ins or anything like that?
Surprisingly, no, but I'm knocking on wood right now.
Well, that issue of the new facilities, as the impact they have on On the older facilities, such a timely topic in Wichita with the 3 extra spaces, and I assume they're all about 100,000 square feet that just popped up at the same time. In Kansas City, it's been more gradual over the past few years, and I thought Kansas City was fairly sudden, the way we had climate control, multi-story climate control hit the market a few years ago. But Wichita is very dramatic. Because you didn't have multi-story climate control before the extra spaces, did you, in Wichita?
Well, there's a U-Haul and it's 2-story, so that's not really multi. There's another conversion, so not what I'd call a true multi. Those 3 are each about 75,000 each. So they're going to have a little bit of an education for Wichita. In the larger markets where folks are used to navigating elevators, that's a little more common. So the multi is going to be a different sell. So as we sell against those products, we push no elevators, no hallways, all those things with banners. And so it's all marketing. A customer doesn't want to hear you slam another product, but when you point out the differences, it goes a long way. So our websites are now talking about no elevators when we're competing against those, and it makes people think, because when they're looking on the web, they're not thinking about elevators, but when they call and get a price from us and saying they're going to shop around, they're going to damn sure ask about an elevator, and that might be the deal killer in that scenario. So it's all about how you package it.
So with these new facilities, the multi-story facilities, they tend to have higher construction costs tied to them. How has construction prices increased or decreased for, say, Class A multi-story facilities versus the older drive-up facilities on materials or labor?
I don't find a whole lot of difference in cost between a single story and a multi-story per rentable square foot today. There's just not that much difference. There's a little difference between climate control and non-climate, but so much of your costs today are site costs and landscaping and stormwater detention. All that stuff is the same no matter whether it's multi-story or single story. So that's not affecting it. We've had a steady increase in material cost ever since 2009, and it's just incrementally keeps going up. I think the labor is probably the one that has risen the most. Labor's probably more than doubled in the last 5 years, and that's it's a matter of supply and demand. There has been so much demand for the self-storage erection labor and for actually all the trades, that they've all been able to raise their prices considerably. And of course, safety has really added to our costs, and everybody's got a big safety program, and all those things have added to the cost, and it just keeps incrementally going up. And I think that's going to continue for at least another year. I don't see any slowdown in the self-storage construction market for at least another year. And then I see a fairly dramatic or slow drop off after a year. But so many of the projects I'm building right now, and I have 8 of them under construction, it's for some of those, it took 3 years to get to a building permit, 2 years, no less than a year. So some of this stuff has been in the pipeline for a long, long time, and we're not looking at a lot of new stuff right now. We're just trying to get caught up and get built what's already in front of us.
So it sounds like new projects have not really slowed down. We had a bunch of new members pop in the late part of spring with new projects coming up. But since then, has there been any signs of projects slowing down? Or any new projects in the pipeline?
Well, I think nationwide is probably slowed down with development applications. Time will tell. We've always had the philosophy, when the economy gets rough, that's the time to show how big of a boy you are. And I personally think that's the time to show out and start developing. But we're a little more aggressive from everything we do with pricing and whatnot. So we're a little more of an aggressive group.
Okay.
A lot of capital looking for storage facilities. And a lot of times they're like just, smaller facilities that are super full, that are buyers are buying them with the idea of expanding. But the demand for storage right now is, over retail, well, over non-real estate investments, and then just within the sector of, compared to shopping centers and office buildings and all that. I mean, it's not to be underestimated.
We may have touched on this already, but has the demand of older facilities, walk-up facilities versus existing Class A facilities changed at all? Of existing facilities, not new construction.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, Brian?
Has the demand for older walk-up, drive-up facilities versus Class A multi-story facilities changed at all? Not talking about new construction, new projects, just on existing.
I don't think it's changed that much. Ours is walk up, and I don't know, our occupancy's dropped a little bit, but they're coming back right now.
Has there been any reduced rents for Kansas owners, or an increase as a result of the increased rise in unemployment?
We've not
Or-
reduced any rents. We slowed down on our pass-throughs, but we kicked them back up last week. In fact, we passed through some $35 rent increases. Actually, in June we started, so we're back to normal where we can do it. We're a little concerned in Wichita with all of the layoffs with Boeing and Textron, and so there's some things that are making us pump our brakes a little bit. But yeah, we're back in the mix. So where we can do it, we're taking advantage of the opportunities, and you don't know when you hit the pricing ceiling until you bounce off of it. So we do that. We do that at times, but if you've got a good pricing program in place, that happens.
Has it created any employee issues at all?
The pandemic?
Yes.
Well, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I hopefully most of our operators know this, but I'm gonna read a couple of things I have in front of me so I get it right. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act was implemented in late March, the first part of April. So for us, we have a lot of employees, but regionally they're split around the country. So FMLA has never been something that we were obligated to be a part of because of our amount of employees geographically. Well, that changed with the coronavirus. So here's some things, and I'm happy to email the legal documents over. You should have something posted as well where your employees are. So I'm going to give you some highlights from this. Did you know that if you have under 500 employees, this could apply to you? So again, I'm not an attorney, I'm not an HR specialist, but I can read English here. So I want to pass some things around. General employers covered under the Act must provide employees with a full-time employee, 80 hours, or a part-time employees, the 2 weeks are equivalent, if they are subject to local quarantine, have been advised by a health provider to self-quarantine, or have COVID symptoms. So let me tell you how that impacted us. So we have an employee, Jane Doe, calls in from one of our stores and said, hey, I'm running a fever. What do I do? Well, we immediately do not allow them to come to work. So we're not playing that game. We asked them to go get tested. So some of those tests took 4 to 7 days to get back. According to the stipulations in this, we're obligated to pay them and not make them use vacation time. All right. Here's another thing, and that's full or part-time. Here's the big doozy that could impact in Kansas and probably the other states with a late school start. This act also says up to 12 weeks paid sick leave and expanded family if the employee is caring for his or her child whose school or place of care is closed due to COVID-related issues. So we've, knock on wood, not experienced that yet. So how we're interpreting this, I would ask you to speak with an attorney on this who's more versed, but how it reads is, if school is closed down for 12 weeks and you have an employee that can't afford or can't get daycare because of COVID, you're obligated to pay that employee up to 12 weeks. So again, this is from the Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division. This is the poster, and we have something from our attorneys from Hinkle that laid it out how it specifically impacts us. So that could, so let's do a single property scenario. You have ABC Storage in Pratt, Kansas, okay? And you're an owner there, but you have an employee. And Jane, school's not going to start until December 1st for some reason, and she can't afford or can't get daycare. You're going to have to still cover that store, but pay employee up to 12 weeks or a total of $12,000 max. There's a max benefit there. So I don't know that any storage managers are making $1,000 a week working the store, but that'd be, you know, with incentives, I think that might be the case in some scenarios. So there's some things as employees where we talked about earlier, Steve Lucas said, understand the legal side because that can sneak up on you. That information, if you didn't know right there, is easily worth your $200 in dues if you didn't have that information. So don't get caught up for under 20 bucks a month to have some information from operators to help operate and manage your business properly. So, but I'm happy to email this out. Again, it's from the Department of Labor, specifically from the Wage and Hour Division. So it's the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And this stays in effect as of right now until December 31 of 2020. I know I kind of took us in the weeds a little bit, but I thought that was important to share.
Yeah, thank you. We'll talk to Jeff also in the legal update about that, see what he has to say about it. So how is that impacted, I guess, the office setup too, in terms of social distancing to keep your employees safe?
Well, I'm sure Roger and Larry may have something a little different. We have limited it since March 24th, one customer in the office at a time. We have staged our office with the customer chairs where we have blocked those where a customer can only stand on one side of a counter, one end of a counter, which keeps them anywhere from 6 to 8 feet away from an employee. We do online leasing. We've done that for quite some time. This at all. We put signs up. We've shut down our restrooms to the public, which has not caused any issues. Some of our locations, based on local requirements, have up to 6 restrooms, which is a pain in the ass. But we shut all of those down to public use, and we've not had any fallout because of it. You know, and we tell everyone, hey, we're just trying to do things to keep our business open. We're not trying to get in the middle of any political hoopla. We just want to keep our businesses open so our employees can have a job. And we've had zero pushback anywhere.
Larry, Roger, you have anything to say about office setup?
We're encouraging our tenants, to go as touchless as they can. We put in a sneeze guard at a minimum, which is powerful. Big plexiglass plate, like a lot of businesses have. Most people are respectful of the situation. Tenants wear masks in the premises. Managers wear masks.
And we offer masks.
And we offer masks, on site and
Sanitizers.
sanitizers.
Right.
I guess we can assume that online rentals have gone up. How has this impacted your online rentals or marketing in general? Has there been new efforts in marketing to get more attention from customers?
Well, operationally, public came into the space and they started dumping a lot of money on the internet. So if you guys are tracking your internet spend, like I'm sure you are, you'll see it. Well, maybe not so much in the rural areas, but Wichita, Kansas City, Houston, Dallas, the major markets, the cost per click is up big time. Public has dumped a lot of money in the market, and we're still confused about, there's got to be a diminishing return somewhere, but they are just smoking everyone out right now. Our internet leads are up threefold. Our online move-ins are at an all-time high. We're up 2 to 3-fold. People are active. I will say in July, the internet activity has slowed down a little bit as far for us, but our properties are becoming higher occupied, so there's not as much inventory for them to see. So I don't know if that's quite a skew yet. Our properties have inventory. They're staying, the leads are staying high and the conversions are high, but the cost is up there as well. In fact, I'm looking here, the cost per click that company-wide, we're up about 13.2%. So, I mean, that's quite for us, but we're in a very competitive markets as well. I didn't break that down specifically into Kansas, but it's getting a little more expensive, but more people are going to the internet. So,
Yeah, great. Is anything else anyone else wants to say? That's it for the questions I have.
Where's our question? Where's our attendee questions? We have attendees. They're just shy, I guess.
Yeah, and also if any of the attendees have problems putting a question in the Q&A, you can always email me too. I'm monitoring the email at kansasstorage@gmail.com.
so at the bottom again, there's at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A tab. If you click on it, it should give you an opportunity. It doesn't show any open questions as of right now.
Wait a minute or two, and then we can get Jeff started.
Any of the panelists have any questions for each other or any comments in general?
You know, I would echo what the changes that COVID has made in our operations to everything that has already been said. You know, we're doing a lot more online rentals. We're handing out masks. We're putting up shields. You know, we're doubling down on the cleaning. All that seems to be working, and our managers are staying highly motivated. And there's some silver linings in the clouds. I mean, the more online rentals, they're beginning to like it, and it's real easy to turn that into an automatic pay. And so we're getting more online and rent being paid automatically seen, and we manage over 4, and we're seeing we've been seeing steady increases. Especially June was very good. July's off a little bit, but business has been good.
Any other comments from our panelists?
Last call on questions from the attendees.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll move over to our legal update with Jeff Greenberger. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you, Brian, Roger, and Larry.